Hey, namaskar, hello, and welcome yet again to another video. So it's been about a month since I posted my last video, and been doing a lot of work in my house. Been very busy, and without ever constant building project. If anybody out there is building a house, you know it's insane. It's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. And if you are building a house and you're doing it within a pair and a family, I really hope you guys have good communication and that you're not taking it out on each other when you're tired and burning out. Because you do get put under some curious stresses. So, today I would love to talk about anxiety, depression, and suicide. Because of the work that I do within the relationship of these yoga practices, they're the three things as of yet that I've worked with the most. And they're the three things actually that have ultimately happened to me that have brought me to be here right now doing this video and being able to share and have the sense of strength, I think, behind me to know that these practices work, because they've calmed down my anxiety to the point that it's almost gone now after living with it all my life. Depression, which is something that I haven't had now for many, many, many years, which I had all my life, which I didn't realize as well, and suicidal tendencies and thoughts, which I never knew. I never actually believed that I was going to go through with the whole process, but I definitely played with the idea a lot. And through meditation, thankfully, I was given a gift, and it allowed me to see the reality and truth of my thoughts before they got the better of me, instead of me believing that that was actually the reality of my reality. And I want to talk a little bit about that too, because of work that I've started to work around and be in with relationship to suicide. And these three things, among many other things, these three things are three of the most, not taboo, but they're the most talked about and untalked about things. Right now, anxiety and depression are, I think, some of the main things that are being spoken about within our society right now, because we're all starting to understand that we're all anxious and we're all depressed and we're all freaked out, and we're all trying to work out ways to calm ourselves down. For those of you that do these practices, you'll know the truth of them, and you know that they work. It doesn't have to be through yoga, but any form of meditational practices, exercising your body, eating well, sleeping well, just those things on their own, not even doing it within the principles of these spiritual practices, you'll start to feel better. But how many of us really want to break out of that process, that programmed sense of ourselves of suffering? Because I didn't realize that I was really self-perpetuating my own suffering, because I wasn't aware that I was self-creating it. And I understand actually some of the things and the topics that we talk about, they may make you feel. And for a long time, I couldn't, like I mentioned before, I couldn't talk about death. I couldn't think about death. I couldn't read anything that had death in the title, because it set me off, it triggered me, and it brought me back to the memory. My lovely left hemisphere, thank you very much for keeping that one safe. It brings me back to the memory of how afraid of it I am. Well, it's not really the truth, no, but it's like it's an assumption that I am afraid of it. So the more I pretend to be afraid of something, which ultimately is kind of what it is, it sounds a bit strange, but the more I constantly procrastinate on this fear, the deeper that sense of it becomes, and it starts to become me. This identification, right? So the more I can step away from that, I can start to change. But it's uncomfortable as hell, because the body's emotionally addicted to its emotional body. You know, it's like people, when you stop smoking, you stop drinking, you stop eating certain foods, you break up in a relationship that you've had for a long time, someone leaves you, the first thing you do, your body goes into shutdown mode, it freaks out, and it doesn't know what to do. It's because it's been programmed by its nervous system, which is fascinatingly beautiful and awesome, but it's been programmed to have that thing in its life. And then when you take that thing away from yourself, the body's going to react. It's going to still want it there because it's used to it, you know? I kind of think of it as the same as like people that lose limbs, you know, or extremities or some form of body part. You know, they say that they feel the ghostness of it. They still feel like they've still got it. It's kind of the same thing, right? And they get the sensations. They can even feel the hotness of having it or whatever. And it's really, I mean, it's not the same, of course, but it's the same, you know. It's like we've become so used to something that's part of us, or we believe it to be part of us because it makes us feel, so it must be part of us. When it's not there, the body still wants it. And over time, as we experience, when you lose a relationship, or you stop eating something, or you stop drinking, or you stop smoking, eventually the feelings get softer and softer and softer and softer. That's because the wiring in your brain has changed, the chemistry in your body's changed. But we really have to do the work to make that change. So for me, from living with anxiety all my life, and depression all my anxiety, and having suicidal thoughts for many years, and actually they still pop into my head sometimes still, but only when my body's under stress and it's under strain, I'll notice that I'm like, thinking that again, wow. Like it's really engraved in my beingness, in my cellular memory, somewhere inside my body, in my brain, wherever it is. But thankfully, through these practices, through meditation, I think specifically, through calming myself down enough and starting to witness and experience my thoughts as happenings, as not what I'm actually consciously choosing to think, I saw the reality of that I really don't want to quit out. I don't want to leave this world now, at least. Well, I don't ever want to leave it, but I know eventually I have to, right? But I'm going to wait for the naturalness of that to happen rather than me taking it on my own to say, you know what, now's the time. Which for me, it feels like that's one of my roles in this life now, is to share this stuff with people that are suffering from anxiety, suffering from depression, and suffering from suicidal tendencies. To let you know that yes, you are experiencing these things, and yes, they feel real, but from my perspective now, they're ghosts. Because if I was fully in my full awareness, would I think the thing that I'm thinking? So like right now, even close your eyes and just sit for a second or two, sit for 10 seconds even, pause the video maybe, and then sit, pause the video at whatever point, and try it, and then come back to this. But if you do pause, or you did pause, what are you thinking? Like, are you actually choosing to think that thing right now? So that was when I realized that I really wasn't choosing to think that I wanted to quit out, or that I was anxious, or I was depressed. It's like, it was just a happening. It was something that was happening to me. It was like, why is this happening? So the more that I've done my stretching my body, and I've started to clean out the tension in my body, it's really started to, life's become very curious, because not only did it actually get more uncomfortable for a while, because all of a sudden, as the chemistry and the biology of my body starts to change, to follow my new way of thinking, new way of being, my new way of existing in the world, it only wants to hang on to the stuff that it's known. Now, it depends on how long I've had that stuff going on, depends on the strength and the resistance to letting it go, right? Or I've been anxious all my life, and I was depressed for the best part of 25 years, I would say, as it turns out. So when you start letting that stuff go, like, it's going to fight back. It's like a bloody drug addiction. So it's going to be uncomfortable. So you need to be around someone that can support you, that can give you unconditional love, that can know enough that what you're going through is part of that awakening process that people talk about, right? To become awake. To become awake, it's nothing amazingly fantastical. It's bloody uncomfortable, actually. It's just that sense of, I now see the reality of where this stuff is coming from and the existence of where I live. And then once you see it just enough, that glimmer, then you can't go back to the blinds. And like, I wish for a long time I wanted to go back to not seeing. And then I realized that it's actually a blessing to be on the other side. I don't know how far into the other side I am, because I still have my manicnesses. I have my little bits of subtle anxiety in my body. I have my hypothyroidism, my adrenal fatigue from burning myself out through fearful imagined situations. I created such a dis-ease in my body from thinking about something negative that was constantly going to happen to me in the future. Maybe later today, maybe tonight when I go to bed, maybe in the morning, as soon as I wake up. You know. Because you might even notice, if you pay attention, especially if you are of the anxious humanoid kind, that your anxiety will be different in different places, different situations, different environments. For me, I notice just before I go to bed, I have a certain type of thought process. When I wake up in the morning, when I'm preparing breakfast, if I'm in the shower, when I'm on the toilet, when I'm gardening, when I'm digging, if my body's now tired, it's very radical what I start thinking. If I'm driving my car, oh my gosh, it's mad. There's so many different scenarios. If you break your day down into a novella, Neighbours, if you break your day down into sections, into moments, we're thinking something very different in each moment. That's a window of opportunity into letting go of anxiety, of depression. So once I started to realize that the anxiety that I was holding on to was a future projection, but a negative one, well, I started to kind of chuckle at myself at the ridiculous situation that I found myself in, making myself extremely uncomfortable. But then I started to project positiveness into my future. So whenever something negative starts to come in, and I do feel a little anxious from time to time because it's such a deeply ingrained part of my body, whenever that process kicks in, I'll stop, I'll take a deep breath, ground myself. Grounding is just presence. So bring myself completely to where I am. Okay, the thing is not actually happening. Calm my body down. It's okay. Bring myself back. So once I would bring myself back to my present moment, and the reality of that thing is actually not happening right now, it starts to dissolve. But it's a practice. You have to do it constantly. It's tiring. It feels like it's tiring. It's like the biggest job you'll ever do. It's the most exhausting job you'll ever do. Keep bringing it back. Keep coming back to now. And the same with depression. Depression is something that you're holding on to from the past. This wishful, whimsical feeling of, I wish that I was that. I wish I had done that. Holding on to the beauty of my youth. Holding on to something. To me, when I realized, for me at least, the way I thought of depression was like, when it was super severe and it was super hardcore, the depression and anxiety mixed. It was like I depressed a button, right? And it was like the button was like, and just everything was firing in my body all at the same time. Like it felt like every gland was pumping, every hormone was pumping, every freaking emotional sense of myself was pumping. And it was horrific. It was so uncomfortable. And then really, that went on for years. until eventually, whilst then I was doing my practices. And then that's when the suicidal tendencies, thoughts, not tendencies, I didn't get that far to tending to do it, but the thoughts started. And I started to notice that my thoughts weren't really my thoughts, because I became aware that they're just happenings, and that my body, wherever it was in its environment, was getting triggered in a certain way. And that was what was creating me to think. I was just, ultimately, it was my body's signal to tell me I was bloody tired. I was exhausted and I needed help. But because there's so much taboo around not being able to talk, I feel shame because I want to quit out. I feel shame because I'm anxious. I feel shame because I'm depressed. It means that I'm a weak person. Fuck that. No, it's none of that. You are tired. Your body's tired. Biologically, chemically speaking, your body's tired and it's telling you. But we've conditioned ourselves to have a certain type of mindset around feeling a certain way. And then it's just going to repeat. And obviously, if you've grown up in an environment where everybody told you you're worthless because you didn't wash your plate, you didn't make your bed, very ridiculous things, but they're the things that get started, right? And then you didn't do something right in your work, you were shit at school, you didn't like your math class, you were worthless again. Your shoes were terrible because you didn't have the nice shoes like the posh kids. You had, feels like I'm talking about my life, right? But it's like all of these things that create my sense of worth. And eventually, when I start to feel tired, when I'm stressed, my body will only bring out the shitty emotions from the stressful environment. So now I'm in my present moment. My body's remembering how to deal with stress because of the past situation, but it didn't deal with it well then, so now it's not going to deal with it good in this present moment. So now what do? Jesus, now I'm effed, right? Now I just want to quit out because that's the only option that makes sense to me, being in so much suffering. And then there's multiple layers of the reasons why someone might want to check out. It doesn't have to be just because of my self-worth, right? But it's always going to be something fearful, I would imagine. We need more people to be aware that it doesn't need to happen. We don't have to check out. This world is so beautiful. This life is so beautiful. There's always something that will keep us grounded, that will keep us here, that can. It's not my job to dissuade someone, but I've seen what it does to people that are left behind from it. And I couldn't put that on my kids. I couldn't put it on my wife, the thought of them finding me. It was like the most distressing thing, and I just couldn't. For them, not for me. So I was like, you know what, I've got to find a way out of my suffering. I've got to find my way out, because I can't do that to somebody. And I found my way out, but I'm in my way out, and like the door's open, but it's a really bloody long corridor. That shit makes me feel like I want to cry. I just touched a nerve. Because sometimes I'm tired of it. If I'm honest, I am tired of it. Because I don't know how to fully surrender myself to my human experience of this time around. I'm supposed to feel. We all feel. We're here to feel. That's how we experience the world. Thankfully, we do feel. And it brings so much joy and love to our lives. But once you open that door and you decide you're going to walk through it because this stuff needs to change, it might be a long corridor. But there's a pinprick at the end of that. And that's the light. That's where I'm going. So yeah, it's bloody intense. But as I was stretching my body enough, releasing the tension, I'm starting to exercise a lot. I'm starting to release positive endorphins, hormones. I'm starting to take cold showers every day. I've been doing it for a couple of months now. I mean, it's not very cold where I live in the tropics. Even in winter, it's not that cold. The water gets pretty cold, actually. And we're about to start doing my ice baths too, just from experiences of those. They like to do some crazy stuff to us. So research it, check it out. Start doing something that makes you uncomfortable. If it makes you uncomfortable, that means that it's a good thing. if it leads to you doing something positive, of course. Stop drinking. That's one thing. It suppresses the nervous system. It messes it up. It stops it from working and makes us feel terrible. And it triggers all the other stuff. So that's the one thing that we need to stop doing. But do everything slowly but surely. And if you go back to it, it doesn't matter. No one's judging us except for ourselves. No one is judging us. And if they're judging us, they're only judging their sense of self because of whatever they're going through. So keep coming back. Keep coming back. So yeah, let's stop it here. And I'm going to make another video in a week and continue this talk about anxiety, depression, and suicidalnesses, just to keep raising awareness and to talk. And, you know, I mean, I could make this same video probably 70 times and I would say something slightly different each time. So that's why it's very hard to pick and choose. So I just don't. I just make it, do it, say it, and that's it. So it's all about awareness, bringing that awareness. See it, witness it, experience it. I'm coming back to England. So I'm going to be around Hawkhurst, Cranbrook, Tunbridge Wells area. I'm setting up a course that's going to be set up for 3 evenings, 2 hours each night, where we're going to talk about this stuff. We're going to practice this stuff and give you some techniques and talk about non-techniques and relaxation. And then it's down to us as individuals whether we want to do it or not. So from June 24th, I'm going to be in England until the beginning of the second week of August. So we've got tons of time to drop in and do some stuff. Drop me a message. Let's hang out. And let's just chat. That's all it is, really. It's just chatting. So much love. Take care. Hopefully this served a purpose of something. It's always a bit like this, I think, with me. I know people have told me I go in and out of subjects like crazy. Hopefully it was easy to follow. Yeah. Speak your truth. Live from your heart. Love yourself deeply, because your body is the most beautiful gift you have. Thank you to this. All of this. With love.